by journalist Lucy Cavendish and family lawyer Luke Thompson. Good to see you both. Good morning. Is it possible to separate without ever harming your children?
I don't think it is possible to separate without harming your children, but I do think there are many ways to mitigate those circumstances, and a lot of it, I think, is about communication. A lot of it is actually putting the needs of your children first and sort of being very adult and responsible about that. The problem is you have two people who aren't communicating that well Absolutely. At the time. That's the issue. So there's a lot of places out there you can go to get help. There's a lot of places that do family therapy, and if couples can do that and try and put the needs of their children first, I think that really helps. I think this generation, I think the generation before, my parents' generation, there was a lot of sort of shame around it, and I think everything was sort of hidden and shrouded, and I think that was very difficult for children, whereas I think now it's much more out in the open. I don't think children feel that stigma.
And they're not alone, are they?
They're not alone, they're not alone. And so consequently, I think that's easier, but I think they get stuck. I mean, if they use as sort of pawns, which I've seen a lot, you know, with couples that are separating, that's very, very destructive.
But is it basically a lose-lose situation? So you say, even though you have separated, it's never possible to do without harm, but then are two people who don't get on also going to do harm? You know, yes. Either way, if you're in a marriage that isn't working, I've talked to a lot of people about this over the years, and what's interesting is I think parents who have separated carry a lot of guilt with them generally. I think mothers especially, and possibly also fathers, take a lot of guilt with them. Actually, I've talked to a lot of children of my generation, and a lot of us actually, I'm a child of divorced parents, a lot of us actually feel better for it in the long term, which might help parents separating now, but that actually in the long term, the children might not be quite as harmed as you think they are at the time.
As a family lawyer, you must encounter this all the time. Is it better for two parents who hate each other to stay together for the sake of children?
I think that very much depends on the circumstances, particularly if there is domestic violence involved. Naturally, I'd advise any client that to protect the safety and well-being of the child, which is absolutely paramount. Yeah. They shouldn't obviously stay in that relationship for the sake of wanting to be married or being part of a relationship. But, you know, in order, and also to safeguard the child, they need to ensure that they take the child out of the situation. But, of course, I do commend those parents who stay in those relationships if there's no risk associated with the child in the event of an important milestone coming up in that child's life, for example, you know, exams, anything like that they might be going through, which is, you know, naturally in the interest of the child also.
But of course the thing is, children do pick up on things that aren't true. I mean, I think the thing is to be honest, and most people want to show their children a loving, you know, warm relationship. Generally, you know, we all have our faults, and relationships are very difficult and go through ups and downs. Most people would like their children to see that type of warm, functioning relationship. If that's not happening between two people, maybe what the children are actually getting is something quite destructive, then it is, you know, maybe people shouldn't stay together. But it is probably a good idea to get some form of counselling to help that relationship either stay together or separate.
Loads of you have been getting in touch on this. Thank you so much for that. Vicky Hogg speaks for many of you, and she says it's better to have two happy separated parents than two together who want to kill each other. I split from my son's dad because it was the best thing to do for me and my son.
It's absolutely fundamental that parents recognise any issues that can arise as a consequence of their separation. If they start to recognise any withdrawal symptoms in relation to the child, first and foremost, they must go and see their GP. Thereafter, seek any support via the school. And ensure that they are, you know, absolutely aware of any of these issues arising, because it's fundamental they nip it in the bud.
Which is hard when you're in an emotional state yourself.
Yes, the idea is to try and co-parent effectively together in the long term once things have calmed down a bit.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.